Alright guys, we're doing the Princess Diaries 2 today. I think it's going to be an easy one. I feel like I'm not going to get lost in the sauce on this one, which is nice. I feel like I don't enjoy the second Princess Diaries as much as I do the first. Not to say that it's not a good story, but I just don't feel like it has a lot of the reread value that I feel the others have. It's also kind of an opportunity, since the first one focused so heavily on Mia and exploring her character. The second book gets to explore the side characters and Mia's dynamics with them a little bit more. And seeing as these are characters that I've grown up with at this point and know very well, I don't need that context anymore. So in this book, Mia is getting ready for her first official introduction to Genovia as their princess in December. That won't happen in this book, but it's introduced here. She's also looking for a profound moment to put in her English journal, which she obviously thinks is much more important. It's in this book that getting a boyfriend becomes a real theme. In the last book, she did mention about having a boyfriend, but it was this nebulous thing that she maybe wanted to do at some point in the future. At this point, a lot of the side characters are getting involved with boys, and I think Mia's realizing that it's a very real concern that she's going to have to contend with sooner than she might think. Mia's best friend, Lily. I'm just going to say right now, I don't know if I said this last time, but I think Lily's such a great character. She feels so real to me because I always question her motives for the things that she does in the books. In this book, she's got a bee in her bonnet about the fact that Mia agrees to do a live interview on TV when apparently Mia promised that Lily could do her first official TV interview for her show. Lily tells it like it is. Lily ends up filming Mia when she's half asleep and broadcasting that to the world. I'm never really sure if she does this to spite Mia because she feels salty about the fact that Mia gave an interview to somebody else before her, or because Mia's actually really disappointed with the interview that she does on the other show. And so perhaps Lily, in her own little way, thought that her interview would show Mia in a more favourable light and that Mia might feel a bit better about it in that way. It's also in this book that we get the first mention of a book that Lily is apparently writing about high school culture. She's very hush-hush and secretive about it, but it does come into play later in the series, and so I thought I'd mention it. We get more characterization from Mum and Dad in this book, which I appreciate. I find the family elements of this series really enjoyable. That's a big draw for me, so I like it when the family gets characterization. Mum in this one, obviously we know she's a strong feminist woman, but we see her reduced to a gibbering mess by her own mother, which is personally relatable for me. Okay, it shows that you can in fact be a strong feminist with strong feminist morals and be afraid of your parents. And also she does get married in this book, and it doesn't sound like a big deal for me to say that you can be a feminist and get married in the year of our Lord 2025. But I remember back in the 2000s when I told my parents that I was a feminist, they asked me if I was going to stop wearing a bra and shaving. So it was kind of a bigger deal at the time. It was important for us as young women to see that you could be a feminist and be feminine. There wasn't a lot of that representation going on at the time. Mum is obviously marrying Mr. G, who is Mia's algebra teacher. He's a really, really good guy. He never does anything within the narrative to disrespect Mia's mum whatsoever. And it is important to get some representation for good guys out there because Lord, does it feel like there aren't any of them sometimes. Dad in the last book, I feel like didn't really make much of a positive impression, but in this book he really gets his opportunity to shine and prove himself as a good parent for Mia, essentially, by standing up for Mum and helping her out at the end of the book, which I will talk more about later. So let's get into the plot here. We begin once again with information about Mum. Mum is pregnant and she tells Mia that her and Mr. J are going to get married, as previously discussed. We go to school. We are introduced to Kenny Showalter, I believe, who is Mia's biology partner. He's dedicated his life to finding the cure for cancer and also promoting Japanese anime, which is a very interesting and eclectic mix of life dedications. He often lets Mia copy their work and their homework. Kenny's not really introduced as an important character, and he's often just mentioned in passing, or mostly in the homework sections where Mia's saying that she doesn't have a fucking clue what's going on and she's going to copy off Kenny. I think it's really clever that Meg Cabot introduced Kenny in this way because he will go on to be a much more important character, and I like the way that she sneaked him in here earlier in the narrative in a way that you might not notice the first time around. So Mia starts receiving some love notes and then some emails from a mysterious secret admirer known only as Joe C. Rocks. Obviously she's hoping that it's Lily's older brother Michael, who is Mia's crush and competitor for best boy in the universe. It's when Mia's speculating about who might have written her these emails that she first mentions the guy who hates it when they put corn in the chili, who is known only by this name throughout most of the series. and is just some guy who Mia often sees picking corn out of the chili in the cafeteria, and she's hoping that he hasn't written the note because basically she thinks he's a freak. Much like Kenny, the guy who hates it when they put corn in the chili will go on to become a much more important character, but that is not until way down the line. And once again, I don't know if this was even planned at this point, but I just love that he's mentioned here in passing, and it just makes the world feel so real. So like I said, Mia has an interview on live television with a woman named Beverly Bellarive, I believe. She accidentally, during this interview, because she's so nervous, mentions the fact that her mum is pregnant and she's going to be marrying her algebra teacher, which they were kind of trying to keep a secret. Her dad's there, and Mia thinks that her dad's reaction is just one of shock. But we as readers can tell that he's obviously gutted because, as I've previously mentioned, it's kind of obvious to us, but not to Mia, that Dad very much still has feelings for Mum. Something that Mia will come to realise later on. But I think that if you're reading a little bit into the subtext, it's obvious, okay? So we can see that Dad's gutted by this news, which it makes what he does later on even more admirable. Cromer, upon hearing the news that there's going to be a wedding, completely takes over and tries to make it this big royal affair for Mia's mum. She and Mr. Giannini are not happy about this, obviously, because that's just not their style. Meanwhile, Mia goes to the sleepover where Lily will end up filming her for the real Princess Mia interview that I mentioned earlier. Mia gets dared to throw an eggplant out of a window, and just as she goes to look out of the window after she's thrown it, Mike comes out of nowhere and tackles her to the ground and is like, don't look out of the window because then they'll know it's you and you will get arrested because that's a fucking crime. Stupid throwaway scene, but obviously as a teenager I found it very romantic that he just swooped in and saved her from danger, okay, so I had to mention it. The interview that she did with Beverly gets Mia in trouble with everyone. Obviously Dad and Grandma, her mum and Mr. Giannini, she kind of outed them. Lily is upset that Mia said they weren't popular, and her other friend Shamika, I'm pretty sure it is, her dad gets to be in his bonnet because Mia mentions the wild parties that are going on at school sometimes, even though I'm pretty sure Shamika isn't going to any of these parties. Everyone falls out with her except, ironically, Tina, who Mia openly called a freak in the interview, but Tina was just happy to get a mention. So it's actually Michael who comforts Mia when she's feeling really bad about this interview, and he mentions that the computer club are going to see a showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show on Halloween. Important to note that Kenny, who is also in the computer club, also mentions Rocky Horror, but Mia isn't really focused on that. So in the run-up to the big wedding, obviously Mia's mum's parents are invited, and they bring along Mia's cousin Hank. She has to take Hank to school with him, and it's the first time that Mia mentions pheromones in the narrative. She's been learning about them in class, and she suspects that Hank is letting them off to everybody except her because they're related, because every other girl in the school seems to be madly in love with him. I'm not just mentioning pheromones because I'm a freak. It's actually a weirdly important part of the narrative, but I can't explain why yet. I just need to tell you that this happened. But Lily and Hank go missing together not once but twice. Boris, Lily's boyfriend, is distraught, and he and Mia suspect that they have run away together in a romantic context. But it turns out that actually Lily was helping Hank to fulfill his lifelong dream of becoming a model. However, when they reveal this to the group, Hank actually turns around and kisses Lily in front of them all. So it's kind of dubious whether Lily actually did cheat on Boris or not in the course of helping Hank fulfill his lifelong dream of becoming a model. If this was a one-off incident, I'd be willing to let Lily off and be like, oh, it's just a coincidence and Hank kissed her out of a feeling of gratitude or whatever. But Lily does actually go on to full-on cheat on Boris later on in the series, so it's entirely possible, and I would be willing to believe that she also did so here. Again, I just want to reiterate, she may not be like the best person as far as the character goes, but as far as the writing, I love it because you're never quite sure with Lily. Anyway, Boris hauls off and hits Hank, which now obviously when I'm older I know that these toxically masculine displays of violence are not impressive in any capacity, right? But when I was younger and I hadn't actually seen anybody haul off and hit anybody yet, the idea of a man hitting another man over you was kind of romantic, right? Especially back in day. So Boris, Lily dismisses him out of hand, and so does Mia as this awkward, geeky guy who's not really worth their time in a way, but he proves himself time and again to be this romantic hero that all of them are searching for, and they just can't see it because he tucks his sweater into his jeans. It's at this point that Mia's admirer Josie Rocks also asks about Rocky Horror, and Mia just goes off the deep end and assumes that it is Michael. Then Mia is gutted because it turns out she can't go to Rocky Horror on Halloween because that is also when Grandma has arranged the wedding for. However, when she gets to the wedding, the couple does not. Her mother and Mr. G do not turn up because it turns out that Mia's dad has in fact helped them to elope. It's obviously a really nice and noble thing for the dad to do anyway. He had no responsibility to do that. It was just the right thing to do. But especially because, like, we know as readers that he still loves and cares about Mia's mom in a romantic way. It's really selfless of him to allow her to go off and have the wedding of her dreams one on one with the man who she loves. Because he lost her. I love it. Grommer is really embarrassed by all of this. Obviously, we know that Grommer, she has a lot of pride and she's embarrassed that her son would do her over like this, that she's invited all of these famous people to this event that is now not going to happen. She locks herself in a hotel room, and Mia, as the only person who didn't know anything about what was going on, goes up to talk to her. She talks Grommer down. She gives us this big speech about how she should be acting like the strong woman that she has been teaching Mia to be this entire time. And Grommer takes this to heart, and she comes out of the room and she says, yeah, I was just fixing my makeup. And I think this is the first time that Mia kind of meets Grommer where she is as a person, and instead of confronting her and being like, no, you were just embarrassed, she's like, okay, Grommer, let's go back to the party. She has this understanding now of who Grommer is as a person, when it's important to stand up to her and when it's okay to let things go. And in this moment, Grommer has suffered enough, okay? She's had a real hit to her pride. If she wants to pretend she was putting her makeup on, then Mia's gonna let her. And it's an important moment for them as people and in their relationship, and this relationship is one of my favorite parts of the book, so I love that. And also I'm pretty sure it goes on to be Mia's profound moment for her English journal, so that little thing is wrapped up also. Because the couple obviously didn't turn up, Mia gets out of staying at the wedding for very long and she gets to turn up last minute to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The Computer Club are all there, Michael's there, Lily and Boris are also there. Mike sees her and just gets breathless because she's in this bridesmaid's dress that she's made up to look like a Glinda the Good Witch costume. Right as he's trying to compliment her, he's fumbling his words so hard that Kenny manages to get in there first and provide the compliment. So yeah, big reveal is it turns out that Kenny was of course Josie Rocks because he loves Josie and the Pussycats, and Mia is so awkward when he asks her on this date and reveals himself that she just kind of says yeah to get the moment over with. She's like so surprised that it wasn't Michael because she so wanted it to be Michael that her brain short circuits and she can't do it. Anyway, Mike sees this whole thing go down and Kenny asked Mia on this date, and once she said yes, he immediately shuts down the dinner that they're all having and is like, right, everybody, we're going home, I'm paying the bill. When they're alone together in the limo, he finally manages to get out a compliment and tell Mia how nice she looks in her dress, but it is too late because she has already promised herself to another man. And I would have just eaten this up as a teenager because I am obsessed with stories that keep the two main love interests away from each other for as long as possible by fate and circumstance, because I love to torture myself. My only note for this book that's not directly related to the plot is that it's in this book that Grommer first mentions Rosagund, Mia's great-great-grandmother or whatever, who strangled the guy she was supposed to marry to death with a braid, and that's how she ended up with the country of Genovia. And that will become a plot point later in the series, so I just had to mention it. I think that my conclusions on the book, this has been really short because there's not a lot of meat to this one. I feel like it relies a lot on the mystery of who Josie Rocks is and the big wedding twist at the end where the couple don't turn up. So once you kind of know that those things are coming, it's just not as good of a read, and I just don't really have a lot of things to dig into with it really. But that's not to say it's not a good story, and I am looking forward to discussing the next one.